Before this story starts, think of the person you love most. Now ask yourself, do they ever reach out first, or are you always the one holding the connection together? I watched Daniel's fingers drum against his latte cup, the same nervous habit I'd found endearing for 3 years. Now it just felt like a metronome counting down to something inevitable. "I've been thinking," he said, not meeting my eyes, "about us, about what we are." I knew this tone. I'd heard it in the silences that had stretched between us for months, in the way he'd started saying "I'm tired" instead of "come here." Still, I waited. "I don't think I ever loved you the way you loved me." The words came out flat, almost apologetic. He wasn't being cruel, that was somehow worse. My coffee sat untouched, cooling between my hands. "What does that mean?" "I mean," he finally looked at me, and there was relief in his eyes, actual relief. "I cared about you. I liked being with you, but what you felt, what you said in all those texts and late-night conversations, I never felt that way back. I tried to, but I just didn't." 3 years. 3 years of "I love yous" that now echoed back hollow. I thought about the weekend I'd surprised him with tickets to see his favorite band. He'd smiled, said thank you, but never seemed as excited as I'd hoped. At the time, I told myself he was just tired from work. "When?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. "When what? When did you know?" He shifted uncomfortably. "I think, maybe from the beginning, I kept waiting to feel what you seemed to feel. You were so sure about us, and I thought maybe I just needed time." Every memory reshuffled itself in my mind like a deck of cards being cut. That time I'd cried after we first said, "I love you." I'd been crying alone. The Valentine's Day when I'd written him a letter and he'd gotten me drugstore chocolates. Not thoughtless, just sufficient. The way he'd introduce me at parties, "This is Maya," never, "This is my girlfriend," with any particular pride. "Why didn't you say something?" "Because you were happy." He said it like it was an excuse. "And I didn't want to hurt you. I kept thinking maybe it would grow into something more." But it hadn't. And now I sat across from someone I'd built an entire future around. Mentally furnished apartments, named hypothetical children, planned vacations, with a person who'd apparently been waiting for feelings that never arrived. So all those times, I started, then stopped. What was the point? Every specific moment I could name would just be another confirmation that I'd been alone in it. "I'm sorry," Daniel said, and he looked it. "I should have been honest earlier. You deserve someone who feels about you the way you feel about them." The worst part was he was being kind. There was no anger to hold on to, no betrayal to rage against, just the slow, suffocating realization that I'd been in a relationship by myself. Weeks later, I found myself afraid to text my friends first. Afraid to say "I love you" to my parents. Afraid that every connection I thought was reciprocal was actually just me, projecting feelings into a void and hearing back my own echo. I'd sit with my phone, typing and deleting messages. "Miss you," "too much," "thinking of you," "too intense." In the end, I'd send nothing at all. Because if I could be that wrong about Daniel, mistake 3 years of polite affection for love, what else had I been wrong about? Which friends were just tolerating me? Which family members wished I'd text less? The question that haunted me wasn't whether Daniel had loved me. It was whether I'd ever know the difference between being loved and simply being allowed. I need to tell you something. We were at dinner, our anniversary dinner, 3 years. I'd worn the dress he loved, the blue one with the open back. I'd spent an hour on my makeup. Marcus had made reservations at the Italian place where we'd had our first date, and I'd thought it was romantic, thoughtful, a sign that he still cared about the details. "I cheated on you," Marcus said. "Last month, I'm sorry." The restaurant noise faded to white static. The couple at the next table was laughing about something. A waiter walked past with a tray of wine glasses. Everything continued like the world hadn't just collapsed. "What?" "With Emily. From work. It was one time. I ended it immediately." He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at his hands folded on the white tablecloth. "I've been in therapy for 3 weeks. I want to make this right." I felt my chest constrict, like someone had wrapped wire around my ribs and pulled. Emily? The one from your department? Yes. It happened after the conference in Austin. We'd been drinking, and He finally looked up, and there were tears in his eyes. Actual tears. I made a terrible mistake, but I love you, and I want to fight for us. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against my thighs under the table. You've been lying to me for a month? I wanted to tell you right away, but my therapist said I needed to process it first, to understand why I did it before I brought it to you. I didn't want to just dump my guilt on you without having done the work. He sounded rehearsed. The words came out too smooth, too prepared, like he'd practiced in front of a mirror. How long have you been planning to tell me? I asked. What? You sound like you've read this from a script. A flicker of something crossed his face. Annoyance? Frustration? It vanished quickly. My therapist helped me prepare what to say. This is the most important conversation of our relationship. I wanted to do it right. I didn't want to mess this up more than I already have. That made sense. Of course it made sense. People prepare for difficult conversations. That's healthy, responsible. So why did my skin feel cold? I went numb through the rest of dinner. He'd ordered my favorite wine. He reached for my hand across the table, and I let him take it because I didn't know what else to do. He talked about couples therapy, about rebuilding trust, about how this could make us stronger. He had a whole plan. He'd already researched therapists, made a list of ones that specialized in infidelity. I know this is devastating, he said as we left the restaurant. I know I broke your trust, but I'm committed to earning it back. Even his word choice felt calculated. Devastating. Broke your trust. Committed. Like therapeutic vocabulary copied from a self-help book. I cried for 2 weeks. Couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. My best friend Kelly told me to leave him, but I couldn't. Despite everything, I loved him. And he was trying. He was in therapy. He was being honest. Didn't that count for something? We started couples therapy. Marcus was the perfect penitent partner. Vulnerable, accountable, grateful for every day I chose to stay. I started to think maybe we could survive this. Maybe this was what real love looked like. Messy and painful and worth fighting for. Then I saw Emily at Marcus's company holiday party. I'd been dreading it for weeks, but Marcus insisted it was important I come. I want everyone to see us together, to see that we're strong. Emily was by the bar, talking to someone from HR. When she saw me, she smiled. Warm and genuine, not the smile of someone who'd slept with my boyfriend. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe I needed to hear her apologize. Maybe I needed to understand how it happened. I walked over while Marcus was in the bathroom. Emily, can we talk? She looked confused but followed me to a quieter corner. Sure, is everything okay? I wanted to say that I've forgiven Marcus, and I don't blame you. I know it takes 2 people. Her confusion deepened. Forgiven him for what? My stomach dropped, for what happened in Austin. Austin? We barely talked in Austin. I was at the conference, but Marcus and I aren't really close. We just work in the same department. She touched my arm. What did he tell you? The room tilted. Oh God, Emily said, reading my face. What did he tell you? It tumbled out. There was no affair. There was never an affair. Emily had never touched Marcus. They'd never been alone together. Nothing had happened. When I confronted him in the parking lot, he didn't even try to deny it at first. He just stood there, keys in his hand, looking tired. Why? I was shaking. Why would you do that? I needed to know, he said finally. Know what? If you'd forgive me, if you really loved me. He said it like it was obvious. You say you love me, but words are easy. I needed to know if you'd stay through something hard, if you were actually committed, or if you'd just leave at the first real problem. So you invented a problem? You tortured me for 2 weeks to see if I'd stay? And you did. He almost smiled. You chose me, you went to therapy, you fought for us, now I know you're the one. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. After you forgave the cheating, he continued, I knew you were really in it, that you loved me enough to work through anything. A test. Our entire relationship crisis had been a test. I didn't leave that night. That's what haunts me most. I drove home with him in silence, and I stayed another month, paralyzed by the realization that I'd performed grief for a fiction he'd written. I'd cried for something that never happened, forgiven a betrayal that existed only in his mind. When I finally left, he seemed genuinely surprised. "But you already forgave the worst thing," he said. "Why would you leave now?" Now I can't trust my own forgiveness. Can't trust that anything anyone tells me is real. Every confession might be manipulation. Every crisis might be theater. Every person I love might be testing me in ways I'll never see. He didn't just betray me. He taught me that love could be a rehearsal, and I'd still play my part perfectly, crying on cue, forgiving on schedule, a puppet of my own devotion. I met Jennifer at Matt's funeral. She was sitting 3 rows behind me at the service, crying into her hands. I didn't know her, didn't recognize her from Matt's work or his gym, or anywhere in the life we'd shared for 5 years. At the reception, she approached me, red-eyed, trembling. "I'm so sorry for your loss," she said. "Thank you. How did you know Matt?" Her face crumpled. We were together for 2 years. The room tilted. "What?" "I didn't know about you," she said quickly. "Not until yesterday when I saw the obituary. It said he was survived by his partner. I thought that was me." We sat in my car for 3 hours, comparing notes like detectives solving a murder. Matt had told her he worked overseas half the time. Oil rigs, he'd said. That's why he could only see her certain weeks. He'd told me he had a demanding travel schedule for consulting work. Different cities, different weeks. Our calendars had never overlapped because he'd designed them not to. She had keys to an apartment I'd never seen. I had keys to the house we supposedly shared, though he'd always said he preferred staying at my place because his was closer to the airport. We both had the same pet name, Bug. We'd both been told we were the love of his life. We'd both been planning futures that included him. "There's more," Jennifer said, pulling out her phone. Her hands were shaking. "I found this in his cloud drive when I was looking for photos for the service." It was a document titled Life Plan. I watched her scroll through it, my whole body numb. There were 2 columns, Jennifer Path and Sarah Path. Under stable income, owns condo, wants kids soon, family money, low maintenance. Under me, creative, spontaneous, no family pressure, okay with unconventional arrangements. At the bottom, decision point, 35th birthday, April. Assess finances, career trajectory, family pressure, choose primary relationship, maintain secondary as backup if possible. His 35th birthday was in 6 weeks. He was going to choose, Jennifer whispered, between us like we were job offers he was weighing. But it was worse than that. We kept reading. There were contingency plans. If Jennifer got pregnant, she became primary automatically. If I got a big career break, I'd be deprioritized because I'd be too busy to notice decreased attention. If his mother's health declined, Jennifer won because she was better with family obligations. We were variables in an equation, pros and cons, risk assessments. There were even scripts, actual written scripts for different scenarios. How to break up with me if he chose Jennifer. You've always wanted freedom and adventure. I don't want to hold you back. How to break up with Jennifer if he chose me. You deserve someone who can give you the stability and family you want. He'd written our endings before we knew there was supposed to be one. Jennifer left town the next day. I don't blame her. But I stayed, and I had to clean out that house, his actual house, the one neither of us had really known. I found more documents, a spreadsheet tracking which stories he'd told to whom, so he wouldn't mix us up. Photos on a hard drive labeled J and S, kept meticulously separate. 2 different Amazon accounts, 2 phone chargers, 2 toothbrushes in 2 different bathrooms. He died in a car accident on a Tuesday. He'd been driving from her apartment to mine. Even his death was caught between us. The worst part isn't that he lied, it's that he loved us both. I really believe he did. But his love was administrative, organized, something to be optimized and scheduled and eventually decided upon like a business merger. We weren't people to him, we were options he was keeping open. Now I can't date. Can't even imagine it. Because every I love you sounds like it might come with a footnote. Primary candidate, pending review. Every relationship feels like I'm auditioning for a role that someone else might be auditioning for too. Jennifer and I don't talk anymore. We're reminders of the same horrible truth. We'd both been loved conditionally by someone who'd convinced us it was forever. And somewhere in his calendar, marked in a color-coded spreadsheet we'd never see, was the day he'd planned to break one of our hearts. We just never got to find out which one.